King, if you want to be a violent racist and never lose your job, become a police officer. Today is part 4 in a 5-week, 25-part series exploring solutions for police brutality in America. Part 1 can be found and Part 2 can be found. Part 3 can be found. The problem of police brutality is actually deeply entrenched and amazingly complicated. It has no quick fixes. No one solution will solve the problem. Instead, it must be tackled from dozens of different angles, but as a part of one comprehensive plan. This series will lay out that plan with reasonable, achievable solutions that will drastically reduce police brutality in this generation. Is it not strange to you that conservatives seem to hate teachers' unions and labor unions, but not police unions? In fact, I thought conservatives just hated unions altogether. I had always heard from my conservative friends that unions stifled innovation, were full of corruption, and went to outrageous lengths to protect bad apples. As it turns out, police unions all over America do all of those things, and more, but their greatest skill, above all others, is contortion. They will contort themselves like pretzels to defend indefensible actions from fellow officers. If you want to be a violent, unethical rule-breaking racist and stay employed, this country has one profession where your job security is all but guaranteed: law enforcement. As our country roils over outrageous cases of police brutality, most of our focus on how to stop the violence understandably center on the exact moments such brutality takes place. The truth is, though, that the conditions and culture which allow police brutality to be a daily reality in America start long before a trigger is pulled or an illegal chokehold applied. For instance, it takes an average of over 2,650 hours to receive a cosmetology license, but police officers, which could help explain why an astounding 40% of homes with a police officer in them suffer from domestic violence, a rate more than double that of the NFL. Furthermore, as people of color and even liberal whites abandon the profession, police departments are becoming the celebrated career choice of conservative white men. Furthermore, as conservative politicians like Donald Trump and others champion law enforcement and use it as a political football, people of color and even liberal whites are going to be less and less likely to make it their chosen profession. To appeal to his uneducated white male base, Trump has taken to talking about police every other day. When police departments are becoming cultural monoliths of poorly trained white men struggling with steroids and alcoholism, what could go wrong? In the San Francisco Police Department, at least 19 different police officers were to one another. Speaking to one another, the officers said things like all NS must f***ing hang and get your pocket gun. Keep it available in case the monkey returns to his roots. It's not against the law to put an animal down, and yet another called Sergeant. Yolanda Williams, a black woman who is head of an advocacy organization for African American officers, ANRBH. What about the who sent texts about getting drunk and killing NS, texted one another saying to get the noose ready and filmed a promo video for the KKK. What about they, including the captain, who texted about hanging NS from trees and randomly texted each other messages like "I hate NS. That's all." What about the who sent 540 racist text messages calling black men in the department the N-word? Many of the police involved in these racist scandals, and dozens of others like them, are still working in those same police departments in spite of the clear evidence that they were racist. If a police officer is found to be racist, particularly in light of the reality that policing disproportionately focuses on people of color, you should be fired that day. All of your previous cases should be reopened and examined for bias. If a police officer thinks so strongly about African Americans that they text these awful messages to one another, the notion that it never actually affected their policing is preposterous. Of course it did. Many of the text messages even claim as much. Police departments must have zero-tolerance policies for racism, and officers like this one from Harvard University before entering the force. Incredibly, some leading voices in law enforcement, like Milwaukee Sheriff David Clarke, who spoke on the main stage at the Republican National Convention. Facts clearly don't matter to men like Sheriff Clarke and Donald Trump. Racist cops don't just remain on police forces, but violent ones do too. In Chicago, is staggering. In fact, were completely dismissed and ignored. For the 1% that were substantiated, the majority of those officers received nothing but written reprimands or paid suspensions less than a week long. Furthermore, the data shows that the complaints filed by white Chicagoans were more likely to be upheld than those filed by African Americans. Between 2001 and 2015, 20 different formal complaints were filed against Chicago Police Department officer Jason Van Dyke. Not a single complaint was ever acted on until Van Dyke was finally arrested for the brutal murder of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald last year. Had Van Dyke been terminated for one of the other 20 complaints against him, Laquan McDonald would likely be alive and well today. At least 326 officers in the Chicago Police Department have received more complaints on the job than Officer Van Dyke. That means 326 officers have received at least 21 formal complaints. This, of course, doesn't begin to measure the number of times people had negative interactions, but never filed an official complaint. Dozens of officers received 50 and 60 formal complaints. In no other profession in America could employees send violent, racist text messages, have 60 formal complaints filed against them, and still keep their job. It's beyond the pale. Last week, after a North Miami police officer, Charles Kinsey, who was laying on the ground with his hands in the air, the police union actually had the nerve to come out and say that the officer did not intend to shoot Kinsey, but the unarmed autistic patient Kinsey was trying to care for. The officer actually fired 3 shots, missed with 2, and hit Kinsey with the other. The entire ordeal is as outrageous and ridiculous as it gets. It appears that the police union is again contorting itself in a fabricated narrative to protect their severely incompetent officer. When Mr. Kinsey asked the officer why he shot him, the officer stated in return, "I don't know." Furthermore, police handcuffed the wounded Kinsey after the shooting, which clearly tells us what they thought of him. This officer should have been fired immediately, but again, we're talking about a profession that clearly sees itself as being above the law. These types of stories go on and on and on. Incompetence, racism, and violence are protected, and, as a result, condoned. Entitled "Betrayed by the Badge" on the astounding number of police officers who have been accused of rape, child pornography, and other types of sexual assault. Almost none were prosecuted and hundreds remained in law enforcement.